4,000 years ago, the Great Pyramids of Giza were already standing. The pharaohs of Egypt were building monuments that would last for millennia. And at that very same moment, on a frozen island off the coast of Siberia, woolly mammoths were still alive. These were not creatures from some distant, forgotten world. They walked this planet alongside human civilization, standing 11 feet tall, weighing up to 18,000 pounds, wrapped in fur so thick it could shield them from temperatures of -50 degrees. For hundreds of thousands of years, they were the undisputed rulers of the Ice Age. So what happened to them? And could they ever come back? This is the story of the woolly mammoth. To understand the woolly mammoth, you have to go back millions of years to the warm grasslands of Africa. That is where the mammoth family tree began, with an ancient species called Mammoths subplanifrons. Over time, these early mammoths migrated north into Europe and Asia, and with each generation they changed. Their bodies grew larger. Their fur grew thicker. They were slowly being shaped by a cooling world. By around 800,000 years ago, the woolly mammoth had emerged in the frozen plains of Siberia. And here is something most people do not know. The woolly mammoth's closest living relative is not the African elephant. It is the Asian elephant. The two share a common ancestor, and genetically they are closer to each other than either one is to an African elephant. In North America, the woolly mammoth shared the continent with its even larger cousin, the Columbian mammoth. DNA studies have shown that the two species actually interbred with one another, something scientists only recently confirmed. Now let's talk about what made the woolly mammoth such an impressive animal, starting with its sheer size. An adult male could stand 9 to 11 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh anywhere from 10,000 to 18,000 pounds. Females were smaller but still enormous, reaching around 8 feet tall and weighing close to 9,000 pounds. But size was just the beginning. The tusks were perhaps the mammoth's most striking feature. They grew continuously throughout the animal's entire life, curving outward from the skull in dramatic spirals that could reach over 13 feet long. The heaviest tusk ever found weighed 255 pounds. Mammoths used them to sweep away snow, fight rivals for mates, and defend themselves against predators. Then, there were the teeth. A woolly mammoth went through 6 complete sets of molars in its lifetime. Each new set was larger and more complex, with ridged plates designed to grind through tough grasses. When the final set wore down, the mammoth could no longer eat. That was how many of them died, not from predators, but from simply running out of teeth. Living through an ice age requires extraordinary engineering, and the woolly mammoth had it all. Its entire body was a cold weather machine, refined by hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Start with the coat. 2 layers of fur covered the body. The outer layer was made of long guard hairs reaching 3 feet in length. Underneath, a dense mat of curly underwool trapped warm air against the skin. Beneath the fur sat a layer of fat up to 4 inches thick, keeping vital organs warm in the most extreme cold. Its ears were only 15 inches long, a fraction of a modern elephant's ears, reducing heat loss. The tail was equally compact at just 14 inches. Every detail of this animal was optimized for one thing: survival. Keeping a body that massive alive took a staggering amount of food. An adult woolly mammoth ate roughly 400 pounds of vegetation every single day and spent up to 20 hours doing it. Scientists once believed they were pure grass eaters, but fossilized dung tells a different story. About 63% of their diet was actually forbs, small flowering plants, with grasses making up only 27%. The trunk was the mammoth's ultimate tool. It could pluck a flower from the ground, strip bark from a tree, shovel snow to reach buried food, and trumpet warning calls heard for miles. It was one of the most versatile appendages in the history of life on Earth. Young mammoths nursed for at least 3 years, learning from their mothers which plants to eat and where to find them. This was not instinct. It was learned behavior, passed down over generations. Woolly mammoths were not solitary wanderers. Like modern elephants, they were deeply social animals that depended on one another to survive. They lived in matriarchal family groups, led by the oldest and most experienced female. This matriarch carried something invaluable: memory. She remembered where to find food when the seasons changed, where water could be found during droughts, and which migration routes were safest. Her knowledge could mean survival or death for the entire family. Males left the herd when they reached maturity, living alone or in small bachelor groups until mating season. Fossil trackways found in Canada show herds moving together as a unit, adults and juveniles side by side. And across the caves of Europe, our own ancestors painted these animals on stone walls, leaving behind some of the oldest art in human history. They clearly recognized what we now know from the fossils. These were intelligent, family-oriented animals that protected and cared for each other. The woolly mammoth's home was the Mammoth Steppe, and it was the largest ecosystem on the planet during the last ice age. This immense grassland stretched from Western Europe across all of northern Asia, over the Bering Land Bridge, and deep into North America. It was a world of open horizons, cold winds, and endless grass. But here is the thing most people get wrong. The Mammoth Steppe was not a frozen wasteland. It was actually a thriving, productive grassland. High atmospheric pressure kept heavy snowfall at bay, creating dry conditions where grasses, sedges, and wildflowers grew in abundance. And the mammoths shared this world with an incredible cast of animals: woolly rhinoceroses, wild horses, giant bison, and massive herds of caribou. Together, these grazers shaped the landscape itself. By feeding on the vegetation, they prevented trees from taking over, maintaining the open grasslands that the entire ecosystem depended on. Despite their size and strength, woolly mammoths were not invincible. Adult mammoths were difficult to bring down, but young calves and weakened individuals were vulnerable. Wolves hunted in coordinated packs, targeting calves that wandered too far from the protection of the herd. Cave hyenas, far larger and more powerful than any hyena alive today, went after the sick and the elderly. Even cave lions, among the largest cats that ever lived, were capable of taking down young mammoths when hunting in groups. But the most dangerous predator of all was the one that arrived last: humans. Armed with Clovis points, carefully sharpened stone spear tips, early human hunters targeted mammoths for food, clothing, and building material. Archaeologists have discovered entire dwellings constructed from mammoth bones and tusks. What was once the greatest animal on the continent became both prey and raw material. Around 10,000 years ago, the woolly mammoth disappeared from the mainland. The Ice Age was ending. The vast Mammoth Steppe was being swallowed by forests and wetlands. At the same time, human populations were growing, hunting the great herds. Attacked from two sides, climate and humanity, the mammoth could not survive. But the story does not end there. On Wrangel Island, a tiny landmass in the Arctic Ocean, about 500 mammoths held on in complete isolation for another 6,000 years. They were alive in 2000 BC, the same era as the pyramids of Egypt. Eventually, around 4,000 years ago, they too vanished. Today, scientists are attempting to bring the woolly mammoth back using gene editing technology, creating a cold-adapted elephant with mammoth traits. Whether they succeed or not, the woolly mammoth remains one of the most extraordinary animals that ever lived, and its story is far from over.